Um, Max, next question for you. Could you describe the link between economic inequality and unequal opportunities in Aotearoa, New Zealand?
Yes, thanks, Murray. It's a really good question, and one which I think follows on very directly from what Tanya in particular was talking about. And it's an important question because you sometimes hear people say, I think particularly conservatives, that the real issue isn't economic inequality, it's unequal opportunities. But in point of fact, you can't really separate those two things, because it's I think reasonably obvious that if children grow up in households that have got very different levels of wealth and income, then they're going to have very different starts in life. In my book, Too Much Money, I talked about how, some children from wealthier families are effectively on an up escalator, from the moment they're born, sort of irrespective of what they do, because their parents can afford to have them in housing that's warm and safe and dry, and which doesn't make them sick, and, can afford to invest in their education and buy them the laptops they need for their schooling. There's a quiet place for them to do their homework, and then, they have a house in the zone for the desirable sort of high schools from which the most prestigious university courses recruit, and so on and so forth. And conversely, there's all these barriers in the way of low income families, who are trying to do the right thing and trying to lift themselves up and work to their strengths. And those are the barriers that some of the barriers that Ganesh has talked about. And so we know internationally that the more economically unequal a country is, the less equal are the opportunities as well. So in a country like the United States, you can predict half of your income as an adult from what your parents earned. So arguably half of your sort of economic choices that determine your income aren't even your choices, they're predetermined. Whereas in Denmark, that figure is just 15%. And in New Zealand, it's probably somewhere in the middle, 25 to 30%. And just to that, just sort of finish answering this, thought I might share one image which speaks to the recent New Zealand research on this, and hopefully that's coming through for people. And basically what the graph is showing is on the horizontal axis, it's sort of ranking parents from poorest 0 to richest 100. And then it's looking at where their children end up, what's their rank in the income distribution. And you can see very clearly from the graph that basically the richer your parents are, on average, the higher you will end up in the income distribution, the richer you will be. And as the researchers of this paper, which came out last year, said, the relationship is almost perfectly linear, except if anything, it's slightly stronger at the top. So there are outsized advantages to being born to really rich parents, but it all just underlines that basic point. If you don't have more equal incomes, if you don't have a narrower, distribution of income, if you don't have a world in which everyone is living up in a house, is growing up in a household where they've got enough to live well, then you are going to have unequal opportunities.